Let's talk about classes and IDs. Classes and IDs allow us to apply some CSS rule to something that we can't target with an HTML selector. Or maybe we would need many HTML selectors to select that whole area. Suppose, for an instance, that we only wanted to apply some kind of formatting to these two list items in our unordered list. So if we look at our code for this, we can't use a UL because that's going to select all of the list items. We can't use a LI because that's going to select all the list items. But we can use a class. A class is for use in multiple areas on your website. An ID is for use on only one area of your website. In this case, we want a class to appear. We need to use a class because we want to change the formatting for two list items. So we have to use a class instead of an ID. So let's see what that looks like. If we go up, let's create a new class and we're going to call it feature. Classes start with a period. IDs start with hashtags. It's really important that you know that. Classes start with periods, and I like to tell my students classes, like you have periods of classes that you take in school, and there's multiple of those. You take multiple classes. Classes apply to multiple areas. An ID is like your MSIS number, your lunch number, your social security number, your driver's license number, and there's only one of those. It's unique to you. So an ID is only one. A class is for multiple. Classes start with periods. IDs start with hashtags. So we're creating a class called feature, .feature. And when we create the CSS rule, that's where we use the dot or the hashtag. Okay? We don't use it anywhere else, just in our CSS rule. And let's change the color. We're going to use a red color. So we're going to do a hexadecimal C70000. Okay, so that's that lovely red color, which I don't think goes with our website at all, but I didn't write this book. Then let's go down. See, we have this list item here. So we've created the class, but in and of itself, it doesn't do anything. If we refresh our page, Alt-B, nothing has happened to our page. We have to apply that class in order for it to do anything, okay? So to apply the class, we do that in the body of our code, somewhere in the body of the code where we want that class to appear. In this case, we want that red color to appear. So inside the opening bracket, we add an attribute, okay? So make sure you're inside that opening element. You are before that closing angle bracket, and we type the word class. Notice there is no period there. Equal to, and then a set of quotation marks. You can use single quotation marks or you can use double quotation marks. Just make sure you use the same one in the end as you did in the beginning. Okay? And then the class's name, which is feature. Okay? So it looks something like that. And now if we refresh our website, that is in red. Okay? Let's repeat that process with the second list item. In our angle bracket, word class equal to, and I'll show you, you can use single quotations just like that. It's going to work exactly the same, single or double. And then if we refresh, both of those are red. Okay? Before I show you how an ID works, let me go back and show you another way you can apply a class. And IDs and classes can be applied similarly. Remember, it's just a class can be applied in multiple locations. An ID can only be applied in one location. Let's suppose that we wanted to apply this class that we created, feature, to only the words Trillium Media Design in this paragraph. Okay? We can't use the paragraph tag or it would format that whole paragraph. So how could we target just these 3 words? there's an element called span. And to apply a span element, it's just the keyword span. So I'm going to drag this closing span tag behind the word design, okay? So check and make sure you have something that looks like this, span, and then Trillium Media Design, and then close your span. And this does absolutely nothing by itself. It's just a way for us to separate or distinguish a segment of a larger element. Watch what happens if we view this in a browser. Nothing. Okay, there's no difference. But now that we have this set aside with an element of its own, we can apply a class or an ID to that element. So let's go inside that span and give it an attribute of class and apply a feature. Okay, now the feature class that we created, and I didn't say this, that's just a made-up word. Okay, that's not a keyword like head or body or P or font size. The developer could have named that anything they wanted to. They could have named it pickles. They could have named it red. They could have named it whatever. Okay, but now we have applied this class, and it's only going to apply to those 3 words. So let's view in a browser, and now you see just those 3 words have that class. Okay? Okay, so let's look at how we create an ID. I'm just really making this up as I go, so bear with me. So IDs start with a hashtag, and let's give it a name of feature 2. Remember, it doesn't matter what we name it. Usually you want a short descriptive name, so feature 2 is good enough for us. Let's change the color to, let's go with black. That's easy. And let's change our font size to, let's do 1.5M. Well, that should be good enough for us to see something. Okay, so we don't really have anywhere on this website where we need to apply an ID. And again, classes and features we're going to use throughout this book. So don't feel too overwhelmed right now if you don't understand everything about a class and an ID. And then we'll just change this span here to apply that ID instead of that class. Okay, so find the span for Trillium Media Design, and we'll delete that class equals, and instead of having the class applied there, we'll do the ID. So we'll do ID equals, and then we'll use feature 2. Okay, so let's take a look at what happens when we view in a browser, and now you see that feature 2 has been applied just to that text. Okay, the important takeaways that I want you to remember: the class allows you to apply a formatting to many areas of one web page. They start with periods. Classes start with periods. To apply a class, you use the class attribute and then the class name. Okay? IDs start with hashtags and allow you to apply the formatting to only one area of the website. It starts with an ID and is applied like that as an attribute of a tag. Okay? We'll keep practicing with it, like I said, so don't feel bad if you don't get it all right now. But hopefully you have a better understanding of a class and an ID.